Welcome back to yet another episode. So this time we're going to take a look at depth of field bracketing on the PENTAX K-3 Mark III. Also, I guess pseudo also called aperture bracketing. Technically, it is depth of field bracketing as it shows in the menu of the PENTAX K-3 Mark III. Now, aperture or depth of field bracketing is not to be confused with focus stacking. They are completely different things, and the camera does not have focus stacking capability built in. I know Olympus does do that. They do have focus stacking capability or focus bracketing. The PENTAX K3 does not. The difference basically is when you're shooting with aperture bracketing or depth of field bracketing, it's just changing the aperture. So you can start off with a very large aperture, wide open, where you get a very thin depth of field, and then it will just increase the aperture from there so that you get further depth of field, further depth of field. And then out of those images, you can pick the one that you like the most. For example, you're taking a picture, you're doing portraits, and you've got the eye in focus, but the nose may be slightly out, but you want that to be in focus. Well, depth of field bracketing will help with that, because as it enlarges the aperture, it will allow you that greater depth of field in your image, and then you can select the one that you like the most. However, there are some shortcomings in regards to utilizing this. For one, you cannot tell it what apertures to use. It just does it on its own. You can set the range, but not the actual aperture that you want to start with or that you want to end with. It'll just pick whatever in between, and it just does it on its own. So you don't have any control over that. However, it does do a very, very good job. I did some testing earlier just to check it out for myself and thought I would share what I found. But again, do not confuse this with focus stacking. Focus stacking allows you to pinpoint each incremental spot of focus on the image, so you can maintain that super shallow depth of field before and after the subject, but keep that whole subject completely in focus instead of having partial blur on the subject itself. So they are not the same thing. I wouldn't even say they're actually related. It's just completely different. So let's take a look at setting it up and all the ins and outs and go from there. All right, so let's go into the bracketing mode here, and you've got your drive mode, depth of field bracketing, and you'll notice that it does give you a slight example at the very top. There's a little flower and then a blurred dot, and then a little arrow pointing towards the right, and then you've got what you can clearly make out are two flowers. So all you can do is select which amount of stops you want the camera to do. Plus or minus. So with the minus, it will start with a larger aperture and work its way down to an open aperture for more blur. And going the other way, once you get past -1 and go to +1, you'll notice those images change. And from there, it will start with a shallow depth of field and then increase from there. But that is the only parameter that you can change. There's nothing else that you can change whatsoever. Even if we go into the drive mode here, there's nothing you can do. And another interesting thing is, if you take a look here, I'm in aperture priority mode. So let me change this to shutter priority, and then we'll go back into the drive modes here. And you'll notice that now it's changed to motion bracketing, right? Which I'm going to cover in another video. But you need to be in, you don't need to be in aperture. I believe TAV also works as well. And then you should be able to select both. Yeah, so now you can select depth of field bracketing or motion bracketing, right? But for AV, we'll just keep it there. For AV, generally, I like to put the camera in the mode that I'm actually going to be using. But anyway, let's take a look at the images that I got, and we will discuss. So here, see, is there any info? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here I was using manual. Basically, these are the settings. So it started off at F8, went to F22, and then went to F32. And I was at 300 millimeters for all of these shots. And you'll notice, obviously, the ISO increased as well. Shutter speed remained the same. Now let's take a look at the actual images. So this is at F8, ISO 800. And as you can see, there is a fair amount of blur everywhere, right? All along the cable there for my power adapter, or my power charger. And the games, because they're a little bit further away, they're okay, in a matter of speaking. The front of the games is a bit blurry. Overall, it is a slightly blurred image. Now let's move to the next image. So this one is at F22, right? So at F22, let's just zoom in a bit here. You'll notice there's a bit more detail between these two images. So this is the F8, this is the F22. So there's a bit more detail on the power USB cable, and a bit more sharpness on the games as well, right? And now let's go to, I believe it was F32. Let's just take a look here. Yep, F32. So let's zoom in. Go back to 1.7. And you'll see here, more of the USB cable is in focus. So that's F32, F22, F8. Now, notice F8, F22, F32. So it's not allowing you, if you wanted to do, say, F8 and then F16 and then F22, it won't allow you to choose those apertures. It's just going to choose whatever apertures it deems it wants to use. You have absolutely no control over that whatsoever. But it does do a pretty good job, as you can see, right? Say I wanted to have the image where the USB cable was more in focus, and I just wanted the games to be just a slight bit more in focus compared to F22, and especially compared to F8, right? I want the bottom of the games to be just that little bit more in focus. Then this works very, very, very well. And it is a useful feature, depending on the circumstance that you'll be shooting. It's not the be-all, end-all. And, as I did state, it is absolutely not a replacement for actual focus stacking. So don't think that this is some way to get around it. It's not. But I do encourage you to try it out. It is useful in certain circumstances. Like I said, if you're wanting to get a certain depth of field look to an image, this does come in handy. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the video, leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. Always helps out. And if you want to support the channel, that info is in the bottom of the description. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'm going to go. I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out.